Can a hiking lifestyle really affect your blood chemistry? That's important to us older hikers. Lifestyle changes are sometimes hard to maintain when we can't see immediate results. A few years ago, I spent 5 weeks investigating this question, and I chose a very specific blood marker, my lipid panel, or blood cholesterol as most of us know it. I made a video of that for another project, and I'm reusing some of that footage here. This is why you'll notice differences in my appearance. I want to be very clear. I am not a medical professional, and I'm not offering any judgment about whether any particular lipid levels are healthy or unhealthy for any individual hiker. My levels tend to run high even though imaging shows I have no clinically significant plaque buildup. These same levels may not have the same impact on others. This experiment was solely a demonstration with little interpretation other than I do mention Triggs over HDL ratio during the discussion. So let's get to it.
So to answer this question, I embarked on an N of 1 experiment. N is the traditional variable used in clinical trials to designate how many participants there are. So an N of 1 experiment is basically a case study. In this case, obviously, the N equals 1 was me. So here's how I went about this. In order to remove diet as having the impact on the cholesterol, I went back to my old way of eating. So during this experiment, my diet was a carbohydrate-rich, all-processed diet, or a CRAP diet, which is kind of like the standard American diet, the SAD, but to the extreme. And that's typically how a hiker actually works, and this exercise that I'm talking about was backpacking. I started on a CRAP diet about a week and a half before the exercise period, before I started the hike. And the reason for that was I wanted to kind of sacrifice my body for science and get myself to the point where we could actually see what my diet was doing to me and seeing how much exercise could improve it. After that, I embarked on a 5-week of moderate intensity extreme exercise. Now that may sound like a contradiction, moderate intensity or extreme, which was it? Well, the moderate intensity was backpacking. The extreme part was from these parameters. I hiked 8 to 10 hours daily. I was going between 10 and 20 miles a day, did a 480 total miles in 33 hiking days. And I was hauling between 30 and 40 pounds on my back the whole way. I basically went from Amicalola Falls in Georgia north to Damascus, Virginia. So anybody who has through hiked the Appalachian Trail and is northbound has done this hike as like the first quarter of their experience out there. I took measurements of my cholesterol every Tuesday morning using a CuroFit L7. I'll put a link in the description to how you can pick up this unit if you feel so inclined. It's a blood cholesterol home testing kit. So that's the parameters of this experiment. I'm on a backpacking trip. I'm out there for 5 weeks, 480 miles, and eating crap. So like I said, I had a run-in period. I was on a crap diet, and it quickly showed degradation in my lipid panel quality prior to my starting. Before I left, yeah, I did have cholesterol that a lot of people would consider high. I don't consider it particularly high. It's over 300. I start to get worried, but it was at 269. My HDL was 50. My LDL up around 200. A little too high for comfort for me, but it is what it is. My triglycerides were at 97. And the HDL to triglyceride ratio, which is the major quality component of my lipid panel from my point of view, was at 1.9. After only a week and a half eating crap, the total cholesterol actually hadn't changed very much. I mean, that's within the margin of error on the machine itself. HDL had gone down a little bit, LDL had gone down a little, trigs had gone way up, and remnant cholesterol being proportional to trigs also went way up. My trigs to HDL ratio had already degraded significantly to 3.5. So yes, I have shown that my lipid panel quality is bad enough at this point that maybe we can see what will happen if we start measuring and doing this exercise. So here's where we started. The blue dot is the total cholesterol. Got HDL measured on there, I've got LDL and trigs, and I took the ratio and I just multiplied it by 100 just so that I didn't have to fool around with the scale on the chart. When it says 350, that means I had a ratio of 3.5 or 3.53 in this case. So there's how I started. So let's go out to the trail and watch as I take each of these measurements.
numbers are total cholesterol 213, triglycerides are at 89, quite an improvement there. HDL has stayed at 44, so it seems like exercise is affecting my triglycerides and LDL, but not the HDL so much. That's kind of a surprise so far. My HDL actually does better with diet. LDL is 151, so my triglycerides to HDL ratio is about 2, so I brought it back down. I've hiked 109 miles since my last report. So interestingly, my total cholesterol is 188. My triglycerides are 64. HDL, I believe this is. Yes, my HDL is up to 50, and my LDL, calculated LDL, is 125. The results were interesting. Total cholesterol is down to 150. LDL is at 94. HDL went down a little to 46, and triglycerides were at 53, so that gives me a triglycerides to HDL ratio of about 1.15. And there we are. And interestingly, now I did eat a Kentucky Fried Chicken meal last night, but the total cholesterol number is up to 171. The triglycerides up to 89. HDL is up to 52. LDL is just over 100, 101. So not as good as what I saw at the Walnut Mountain. Now, I only did 85 miles this week. I had a 0 day in there, and I had yesterday was a Nero day. I only went 6 miles to get down here to the hostel.
Now, I did do more than I've ever done. I did 116 miles this past week. Total cholesterol is 164. Triglycerides 52, HDL 48, so that's a ratio of 1.08. That's the best I've ever been. LDL, the calculated one, is 105. So those are the measurements I took out on the trail. When I got back, I immediately got a cholesterol panel from my doctor's office. I just to make sure that this was actually giving me something accurate. I think in relative terms, no matter what, if this thing shows your cholesterol going down, it's really going down. The question is, how much does it match the regular tests? And also, out of these measurements, one of them seemed anomalous. It wasn't obvious right away to me which measurement was the problematic one. Was it the 3rd week or was it the 4th week? I believe that 4th week measurement may actually have been the anomalous one. When you see it laid out on a chart like this, you see that, yeah, it kind of went the wrong way, but then the 5th week, the trends continued. And then finally, after a few days off, when I took that lab test, I immediately came home before eating anything, and I also took the 35 microliters and put it into this. And the most important measure of all to me, which is the ratio, it was 1.7 from the lab and it was 1.67 from this machine. So they're essentially the same thing. The totals were off by about 8%. So yeah, you know, that's significant in my mind. But we see that, yeah, these trends were real. So here's some observations from this little self-experiment I ran. First, it's limited applicability. For one thing, it's just me, but like how many of my viewers, most of my viewers are actually in my age group, and how many of us can really exercise on a regular basis for 8 to 10 hours a day? I mean, this was an exceptional circumstance. I was on a backpacking trip. I was away from home for 5 weeks, devoted entirely to doing this hike. 8 to 10 hours a day. It's normal when you're out hiking, but you can't do that for the rest of your life. I have too many social obligations. It's limited in that sense. Lipid readings are volatile, and especially triglycerides. Just what you eat the night before or how many hours you fast. These things can affect your triglyceride levels probably more than anything else. Next, my HDL was not impacted much. You notice that the HDL numbers pretty much stayed the same throughout this experiment. I thought exercise was supposed to affect HDL. HDL just basically stayed constant. So exercise for me is not the answer to HDL. You notice there was an immediate regression seen as soon as I ceased exercise. I mean, the very next day I went and I took the formal cholesterol test from my doctor's office. Total cholesterol was like 168. And then I have to ask, well, how much of the effect was actually the exercise and how much was the weight loss that went along with that? I mean, you go out and hike for over a month, you're going to lose weight. Was it the exercise per se, or was it the weight loss that went along with the exercise? Probably both.
That experiment was in 2023, just under 3 years ago as I record this. Again, this is not really about lipid levels per se. It's about whether hiking can have an effect on our blood chemistry and what that may say about our health. My lipid panel was just used as an example because it's something I could measure weekly. So what's the general lesson here? For me, it's that consistent hiking may make us outliers compared to the average population in their 60s and beyond. A nearly 40% reduction in total cholesterol in just 5 weeks says something about my metabolic health that I'll let my preventive medicine doctor interpret. The most telling part of this? When I had my blood lipids checked at the end of the hike, I didn't hear a word from my PCP about the results. No asking, how did you get your total cholesterol down so fast? Or, is this right? It's inconsistent with past measures. No intellectual curiosity, but it's really not their fault. The system isn't designed to look for such things. It's all population statistics and thresholds. These have become drivers of healthcare in the Western world instead of just being one indicator of overall health. Your number exceeds a threshold? Take this drug. It doesn't? Well, not even worth discussing. No one should expect to have the same results as me. That's an individual response, and yours could be similar or quite different. That's why we need to own our own health, and for many of us, the joy of hiking keeps it in our hands, or at least in our feet.
If you appreciate this content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment on this or other topics you'd like me to cover. And if you haven't seen this video, please take a look at it now. Thanks for watching.